Fearless investors, we're back again with another week of the pod. This is a gentleman that I met at Deal Champs event, and he was the closing keynote speaker. Has a massive following on Instagram, but then also owns a $25 million plus portfolio. So he's an absolute killer in the real estate game. He dropped some like gold nuggets, especially on mindset. I really appreciated my time to be able to interview Austin. He's an absolute gangster when it comes to flipping. And then his story is one that I think will relate to all of you guys in terms of taking a leap of faith on yourself and betting on yourself to figure it out. And it's led to this point where he's now buying deals with none of his own money. He's utilizing the burst strategy, and he's going to go over in detail how he does it and how you can learn from him. So stay tuned till the end. I got some announcements for you with our group. Fearless investors, thank you as always for being here. Appreciate the support. We'll see you later. Let's dive into Austin. Fearless investors, welcome back. Welcome back to the pod. I'm excited about this one. I met Austin at an event, and this dude's a killer. There's certain people you just meet and you just know they're legit. But more importantly, you also know there's a lot of people you meet that are legit, that are genuine people. And that's why I really, really like Austin. He's a hustler. I'm excited for him to share his story. Austin, my man, thank you for being here. Appreciate you, brother.
Likewise, bro. Looking forward to today. And it was an honor connecting. It was probably 4 or 5 months ago now?
I know. Time flies, man. It feels like it was just yesterday. But yeah, that was almost the beginning of the year.
Crazy.
Time flies, man. Well, listen, we're excited. We're excited to dive into your story. I know that you do a lot in real estate as well as the mentorship space, and we want to dive into all of that. But let's start from the beginning. Our audience, we love to get to know really the authenticity of the people that come on this pod. So I'd love for you to kind of pick up from the beginning, where you started in real estate, where you kind of made that transition into it full time, and we'll go from there, brother.
Yeah, no, 100%. My first original dream was to go to the NBA. That didn't quite work out. And, ended up reading a book, Think and Grow Rich, which turned me on to real estate, which turned me on to passive income. And I was like, that sounds like a cool thing to have passive residual income. So I had about 30 grand saved when I was 20 years old. I bought a duplex, just the traditional method, just put a down payment, got bank financing. And then I realized I was broke. And I was like, well, I can't buy a bunch of rental properties if I'm just putting, 20% down on these rentals. And then I ended up meeting my mentor, taught me how to flip houses using other people's money. Flipped my first house at 22, made $107,000 net profit. Flipped another one 90 days later, made 50 grand in profit. Then I, quit my job. I was valeting cars, dropped out of college, and went all in on real estate. Been doing it the last 9-ish years now. And, flipped, wholesaled, new construction, rental portfolios, commercials, warehouses, a little bit of everything over the last 9 years or so.
Love it, bro. That's the condensed version. We about to open that mess up. So I let's start from the beginning, right? Because you mentioned you started as a hooper. I didn't know Austin was a hooper, baby. So where'd you play? Did you play college ball, or tell us a little bit about that background?
Yeah, so I played in high school, and then we went to a prep school out in Arizona.
Cool.
So it wasn't college. It was I guess an in-between year.
Yeah.
Basketball was my life. And, when I got out there, I was second in points, first in rebounds, first in steals, first in assists. I was balling.
Let's go.
And it just got to the point where I hated touching the basketball, even the games I hated. And, I feel like everybody at some point in their life has to transition out of something that they felt like was them. And it was weird. And, luckily, I don't know how, but the book Think and Grow Rich, I ended up with it. And it changed my life.
Yeah. So that's interesting, right? Because I feel like, I have, a sports background as well. I played college football. And let's dive into that mentality a little bit. Do you feel like you being an athlete, were there things that you learned being an athlete, especially a college athlete, that translated well into your career? How did that help you in your career up to this point?
100%. I mean, I feel like everybody I know that played some sort of athlete, some sort of sports, are very competitive. And that's what entrepreneurship is. It's you want to win. like, yeah, you want to, other see other people win, and raising tide raises all ships. But like with that, like I want to win, So I think that was huge. And then also just the work ethic. I mean, I would work out 2-3
Yep.
times a day. And something that one of my mentors always told me in basketball is like, when you're not working, somebody else is. So somebody else is working to take your spot. So I think that transitioned into entrepreneurship as well. Just be willing to like do whatever it takes to get to where you want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. And so you have this foundation of being an athlete. There's a lot of foundational skills, characteristics that are developed, and then you read Think and Grow Rich, right?
Yep.
Was that the book? What were some of the takeaways there that led you to real estate? Was that the book specifically that moved you to real estate, or was that more of a mentality that helped you kind of unlock and then you jumped into real estate?
Yeah, so that was like mindset, just
Yeah.
seeing the possibilities outside of being an athlete or, a musician or a rapper or something. And, one of the things we talked about was journaling. So I started journaling and we had a 3-story condo. I was on the rooftop just sitting there just journaling. And I was looking over and I saw I think it was like a 7-unit apartment building or something. And something just clicked. And it was like, if there's one person that owns 7 units and they're all paying him rent, like he's got to be making money somehow. So that's kind of what gave me like the itch into real estate. And then I, got online, I ordered like, $300, real estate courses and just started reading books and, passive residual income. I was like, I mean, that sounds pretty nice, making money continuously without working. We all know it's not that simple, but it's like, yeah, like I want that. And then I read somewhere else that said 90% of all people who file a tax return with $1 million or more on it had real estate in their portfolio. I was like, all right, this is going to be the way that I get rich.
Yep. Love it. So that book helped you develop mindset. You start seeing other people make money, being exposed to different opportunities. Real estate was a common denominator. So then from that point, because we all know that the hardest deal is always your first deal.
Thanks.
It's always the hardest deal. And it sounded like, because you spent 30 grand on your first deal, right? And that probably at that time was all you had.
100%.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So walk us through that mindset shift. Like how did you get to that point where it's like, hey, I'm sending it, I'm jumping?
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of say like I had like 2 starts. So like buying the rental property and then doing my first flip, and we'll talk about kind of that journey. But the rental property, like I heard about passive residual income. So I ended up getting a valet job. I moved back to Ohio, that's where I'm from, got a valet job just to start making money, and told my mom I'd always graduate college and get my degree. So started going to community college, taking 15 credit hours. And I started saving money from the valet job, and then I would just look online for rental properties, and I created like little spreadsheet, did my mortgage calculator thing in there, and at the time it was just income over mortgage. I didn't know about vacancies and repairs and all this other stuff. And, so I finally ended up finding a duplex. It cash flowed about $1,000 a month net, not net, but income over mortgage. And I was like, this is great. I make $1,000 a month doing nothing. So ended up buying it. I had money as a down payment, just from being a kid, flipping candy, shoveling driveways, cutting grass. My parents never let me spend my money. They tricked me into putting it into a bank account that was mine. And then whenever I wanted to use it to buy like an ATV or something, they told me I couldn't. I hated it at the moment, but it was a blessing looking back. So then bought the duplex. And then I sat there and I was like, I'm broke. It took me 20 years to buy one rental property. And my agent made like $7,000 in commissions on that property. So I was like, let me get my real estate license. So I did a 4-day crash course, got my real estate license, sold 2 houses, and I made like 5 or 10 grand and hated it. And I was like, this is not it. And I was driving into Valet one morning, 7 a.m. and on the radio, if you want to learn how to get rich flipping houses, come to this free seminar. So went to the seminar, joined a coaching program for $25,000, pulled out new credit cards, maxed them out the next day, 18 months, no interest, and went all in on real estate. But the big caveat there is that to me, that's like the day I decided I was doing real estate. So that from that day to the day I made money doing real estate was a 16-month journey.
Yeah.
And that's about that first deal is the hardest part. But once you finally get over that cliff, like you have the skills and the ability at that point. So that was definitely the hardest part for me during my growth.
Love it, man. There's so much gas in what you just said. Like, and I want to dive into each section of it, but I want to rewind a little bit, kind of focus on the Austin part, and then I want to focus on real estate. But you mentioned something I really want to dive into, and that's your relationship with your parents, right?
Yes.
Like they set up a bank account. They're saying, "Hey, put your money here. You go to buy something, you don't have access." And so, and I'm sure now you're looking back, and that was a huge blessing, right? What were some of the core lessons that they taught you that you saw were very valuable, especially the ones that you don't realize were real lessons until now, looking back? You know what I mean?
This is huge. I got my first baby coming in a month and a half, so it really hits home because like some things I want to do for my kid, right? So
Absolutely.
a couple of them. One is like not recklessly spending. I hated it at the time because like it's my money. I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do with it. But like I wouldn't have the money to buy a duplex at 20 if they didn't do that for me. So like that was a blessing, just being smart with your money, investing into assets instead of liabilities first. Another one is they put me, so their credit card, they added me as like a user, I think is the word.
Authorized user.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
So
got
like
that credit score.
I had a card, but like they never actually gave it to me. So when I turned 20 to buy a rental property, I had a credit score. That was,
Yeah.
but again, my parents paid their credit card bills. If they don't pay the bills, you can get hurt just as much as they can help you. So just one caveat there. So that was huge. And then, something all throughout my childhood, they never let me quit on anything. Like I remember very vividly, like I started playing soccer and we would go to soccer practice and it'd be the middle of the winter. And, we'd show up for practice and they'd be like, all right, run 5 miles. And then you get done running 5 miles and come back and they're like, practice is done. I was like, this is terrible. Like I hate running. And I went back home that day and I was like, Mom, Dad, like I quit. I'm done. They're like, you will never quit a day in your life. And that, again, like to me, you don't think about it at the time, but like now I know that's part of why I am where I am today. I'll start like a Netflix movie. My wife hates it and it's terrible. I have to finish it. It's just how I'm wired. Like, I have to finish whatever I start with. So it's a bit of a lesson for sure.
Especially in entrepreneurship. Like honestly, like, I heard a quote the other day that was hard facts. It's like, Alex Hermosi. He was like, look, you never win at business. There's not a deal or an amount of money you make where you're like, hey, I've won. The way you win is you keep playing,
Yep.
right? And the only way you lose is you stop playing, right? And so that's hard facts, man. And it sounds like your parents were incredible at instilling that in you. So that's awesome, man.
100%.
So I want to take a shift now. Let's jump into real estate, okay? And I want to pick up from this story that you said of you drove to valet and you hear this radio ad, right? And so tell us about that. How was that mentorship? How'd you find yourself there? What was some of the value that came from that mentorship program?
Yeah, so radio ads, like, free two-hour seminar to learn how to flip houses. I think it was like, 2 or 3 days after that. So I
Yep.
went to the 2-hour thing and learned a bunch. I was like, this is phenomenal and it's free. And then at the end of it, they were like, hey, we have a 3-day seminar. It's $200 and we only got a couple tickets. And I was first of all, I was sitting in the front row the whole time. And then as soon as they said that, I was the first one to the back to swipe my credit card to go to the 3-day seminar.
Let's go.
So then went to the 3-day seminar. Day 2, it's education. And then day 2, they pitched their coaching program. They're like, hey, if you want all these amazing things. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. Like, it's only a $25,000 investment. And this is only a few months after I just bought my rental property. So I was broke. So, I went home that night and, asked everybody, my mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, my grandma, my cousin, like everybody, if I could borrow money. And they're like, hey, this probably sounds a little too good to be true. If it was that easy, everybody would do it. Same thing we all hear, right?
100%.
And I was devastated. Literally to the point, I was still living with my parents at the time, literally to the point I crawled under our dining room table at like 1 a.m. in the morning and started crying because I felt like I was missing out on an opportunity of a lifetime. Like I felt that, like, this is it for me.
Yeah.
And, thank God I wasn't really crying. I was like going crazy, I guess, because my parents actually woke up because they heard me and came downstairs. And that right then I went to AmericanExpress.com. I said I made $100,000 a year and I had an 800 credit score. Nothing close to that. And they gave me a $15,000 credit card with 18 months, no interest. And then, my parents, my whole life have seen what I did, working at basketball, buying a duplex when I was 20, valeting cars, going to college, taking 15 credit hours, trying to do this real estate thing. So they, blessed me and, fronted the other $10,000 for that coaching program. So I went the next day to the third day of the seminar, maxed out my 15 grand on my credit card. And then my parents fronted the other 10 and thought I was going to get rich overnight. And again, it was a 16-month process to make my first penny.
Yeah. Love it, man. Hey, and you look back now and it's like, it really, there was a reason for that pull, right? There was a reason for it and there was a purpose behind it and you made it work. So here's a question I ask everybody, right? Especially when they first experience their first mentorship program. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the program itself was the most valuable to you, or was it the circumstances in which you put yourself by getting into the program?
It's a great question. I've never actually been asked that direct. The question usually is, was it worth it? And my answer typically to that is yes, but there's multiple ways to get education.
Absolutely.
But with that question, I think it's more the circumstances you put yourself in, because you put yourself – for me, I had 18 months, no interest. Like, there's no way on God's earth I could pay $25,000 on a credit card. Like, I was broke, right?
Yeah. And
it took me 16 months to do it. But like, I was going to do this no matter what the circumstances were. I was valeting cars about 50, 60 hours a week. I was going to college, taking 15 credit hours, and I was actively looking at and making offers on houses every single day for 16 months straight. I was legit working 18, 20-hour days.
Grinding.
I think it's a phenomenal. I've literally never been asked that, but I think it's the position you put yourself in to make yourself and force yourself to be successful.
And since then, have you replicated that? Has that been something that, yeah.
Absolutely. I spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year between coaches, masterminds, events, mentors. Because like I'm a huge believer in it. You know why that is everyone wants a shortcut, the cheat code. That is the cheat code.
100%.
That's the way to take this, very slow raise to start taking off for you. So yes, 100%. I do it every year.
Love it. Love it. So I feel like, first off, this has been gas up to this point. We haven't even gotten to the meat and potatoes. So this has been awesome. Just getting to know your story. Just there's some huge foundational pillars that I hope people are listening to and watching. So that led you all the way to today, yep. Right? And I know that you have 25 million plus in real estate. I know you do a lot, but give the people a little synopsis of what Austin offers today. What does your business look like today? Your operations? What are you involved in?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was flipping and or wholesaling like 90% of the properties that came into my pipeline because I was just trying to make cash. And then 3-ish years ago, maybe 3.5, that business model completely inverted from 90% flips and 10% rentals to 90% rentals and 10% flips. So now my business looks like we're just trying to build a portfolio, everything from single family to multifamily to, warehouse, commercial. I'm trying to build I say wealth is through ownership, right? And for me, the best way to do that is through owning real estate. So trying to build that as much as possible. We still flip, every once in a while, just to, keep the money coming in. But building that and then, working on the personal brand, I think the other side of this is eyeballs is currency in today's world. So, the more influence and the more people that you can help get what they want, the faster you're going to be able to get what you want.
Absolutely. And let's dive into that a little bit. What specifically are you teaching people? What specifically are you helping people learn in today's market?
Yeah. So my strategy, I'm sure a lot of people have heard, it's called the BRRRR, right? Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. The way that I structure it is I've to this day used all other people's money to fund every deal. So I've raised, $35, $40 million of private money to fund all of my deals. So that's how we do it. And yeah, people are like, hey, interest rates a little bit higher. There's strategies around that. You can do interest only loans. There's different ways you can manage properties to increase the cash flow. So yeah, I'm not saying, I don't think any investment strategy is ever perfect, but as long as you're able to pivot inside of a market, there's still opportunity within that. So essentially we teach you how to find the deals, raise 100% funding for the deals, and then own it long-term as an asset to build wealth for yourself and your family.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So I'd love to kind of jump into more tactical side of that then, right? Because you're a master at helping and identifying other people's money. How exactly are you doing that? Is this private capital? Is this institutional money? Are these creative loans that people just have never heard about? Where is it coming, or is it a mix of all of it?
Yeah, so there's like 4 ways you can fund deals, basically, right? Your own cash, which a lot of people I didn't have, right? Second is hard money. So these are institutions that are in the business of lending investors like all of us money. But the problem with that is you have to bring down payment, you got to make monthly interest payments, all that stuff. The third way is private money. It's 100% relationship based, and you can get 100% funding on your deals. And then the fourth one is like kind of a mixture of some of those, but it's syndication model. So if you're doing large scale, 5, 10, 20, $50 million deals, you raise a fund and then you have equity partners within that. So my model has been the private money aspect. So we get 100% funding on every deal. We make no monthly interest payments. All the interest accrues until the payoff. We get the entire rehab amount in our bank account on the purchase, so we don't ever have to front any rehab funds. And then on the back end, when we refi out, we pay everybody off. But to answer your question, like the biggest thing I get is, all right, that sounds great, but like, where do I find it, right? And this is a very, general answer, but the answer is everywhere. I genuinely feel like I have an opportunity of a lifetime for other people to invest with me. Most people come to raising money like you're in an ask position. You feel like, oh, can you please believe in me? Can you please give me money? Can you please trust me? And that's how it usually happens. And it's very hard to have intelligent conversations to convince people to give you money. But on the flip to that, I know I'm bringing somebody an opportunity of a lifetime to invest with me. The conversation's vastly different, and there's a different level of confidence. And people are like, it's FOMO. They're like, oh man, like I want to get in on this as well. When I really learned how people plan for retirement, that's why I believe I have the opportunity. Very rough, right? Let's say people's goal is to save up $1 million and retire at 65. Then they retire at 65 and they spend a little bit of money and invest conservatively to, live their life and hopefully have enough money before they die. That's most people's retirement plan, right? The problem with that is if you run out of money, then you got to go get a job. And when you die, you can give your kids nothing, zero inheritance.
Yep.
And I was like, that's terrible, right? And that's how most people think. So the alternative is to do the same thing, save up $1 million or whatever the number is, lend to somebody like myself or you or anybody else at, let's say, 12% per year. That means you can pay them $120,000 in interest per year, and they can live for however long because you're paying it every year. And when they die, they give their kids $1 million inheritance. It's like, to me, boom, light bulb. It's like I got goosebumps just talking about it. Like you can feel the passion that I have. So when I talk to people about this, they feel like they need this opportunity as well. So I think it's the mindset shift is the biggest thing people have to go through.
It's so funny that this is, I feel like, a light bulb that anybody that jumps into, especially the private capital sector of raising capital, it's that light bulb moment when you realize that inflation does not favor the normal consumer. It does not favor the W-2. In fact, it bullies them. And they don't know it, sadly, until it's too late. 100%. I'm sure you have a lot of people. I just had this happen last month. I had an older lady come to me. Her husband's retiring next month, and he's worked at this job for 30 years, and he has $700,000 to retire with. Yeah. And it's like in today's market, like, you ain't gonna last like maybe 5 years if you're frugal. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's sad because they had no clue. They just trusted the system. They trusted the man, gave their money to the government, and here they are. And so, to your point, it adds to that conviction that it's not just an idea. It's truth. Real estate can provide an alternative means of retirement for people, or true retirement option for people, right? And to your point, that's exactly what we do. And so I love it, man.
I think, like, for the listeners, like, really driving this point home, think about that, guys. Like, these two people were retiring and scared for their retirement, which is supposed to be the funnest part of their life. And they were scared and fearful of it. But comes to him, we pay him, 10, 12%. You can pay him $80,000 a year, like clockwork, right? And give or take, obviously these numbers are rounded, but like, how much comfort that will give people? Yep. Like it literally will change their life. Like after doing this for many years, my parents rolled all of their retirement accounts to self-directed IRAs, all of them, and lend money to other people in real estate now because of, what I've been able to do. And they've seen the proof of concept. Their retirement's probably double than what it could be. because they see the opportunity. And yes, it's a win-win. We all win. They win, I win, everybody wins, right? When you borrow money. But like, you really need to understand this, because if you don't understand it, you're not going to talk to people. You're not going to raise money. You're not going to be able to build the lifestyle that you want to live.
Absolutely. And what I love, and this is why I like you, Austin, right? Because I feel like the right people understand that it's really about taking care of people.
For sure.
Right. Because to your point, right, like the reason I do this is for the conversation after, when I'm explaining to this older lady last month what's going to happen.
Yep.
And she breaks down on the phone and is crying because she's like, you're sent from heaven. Like, that's why we do it, right? To provide people these options that the government don't teach you this. School don't teach you this. In fact, they don't want you to know about it, right? Sadly, right? And so, and the right people in this game understand that money and real estate, those are all byproducts of relationships, of taking care of people, right? And when you understand that, I think more business flows your way. And that's why you have a $25 million portfolio and growing, right? And so I love it, man. I love it, man. Hey, this has been a gold mine. I appreciate your time, brother. You have been a wealth of knowledge. Just to wrap this up, what would you say is your biggest piece of advice for people listening in your journey? If you could just give people one solid piece of advice that you've learned in your career, what would it be, brother?
Yeah, the big thing is you got to understand real estate is not an if game. It's a win game. Most people come into, including myself when I started, it was like, if this is going to work, if it's possible, if I get my first deal, if I raise that first, $100,000, it was if. Like, real estate is proven time and time and time and time and time again. It's real. It's never an if question. It's a win question. So like, it took me 16 months to do my first deal. It took me 7.5 years to buy my first commercial warehouse. Like, why not speed that time up and condense time? Because it's not an if game. It's a win game.
Love it. Love it. Love it, man. Lastly, Austin, where can people find you? Where can they learn from you, my guy?
Yeah, I'm on all the socials, but Instagram at Austin Rutherford Official. That's where I communicate the most. Shoot me a DM. Would love to connect. And then howtogetfreehouses.com. We can build some wealth for you.
Austin, as I mentioned, dude, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you being here. Fearless investors, click the link below. I'm going to make sure you guys have access to Austin. And as always, thank you guys for being here and supporting the channel. Austin, appreciate you, brother. Wish you well. We'll keep in touch, my guy.
Absolutely, bro.
Hopefully you guys found value in that. That was absolute gas. I just love genuine people, genuine souls, and Austin is one of those. As you guys can tell, the way he goes about his business is really focused on how to give people better options, especially when it comes to their retirement, and putting it into assets and deals that can create a lot of peace of mind for people, which is invaluable. For those of you that have not joined the CASTR community, make sure you do so. Hop on a call with my team. We have students that are closing deals weekly, and I'm just excited for the people that are learning to bet on themselves and go out there and realize that this stuff really isn't as hard as you think it is. And so please dive into the CASTR community if you hadn't, linked below. Thank you again always for being here and supporting the channel. Fearless investors, we out, baby.